internet doesn't whisper anymore, it explodes. And right now, the explosion has one name flying through every comment section, every late-night thread, every conspiracy-filled livestream, Ellen DeGeneres. Because a new wave of rumors tied to the infamous Jeffrey Epstein network has suddenly dragged her name back into the spotlight. And people online are asking one uncomfortable question again and again. Why does it feel like powerful celebrities disappear?
So, Mr. President, we are looking at an image of a portrait that looks to be you, Mr. President, in this blue dress. Can you describe this painting? And
he doesn't need to describe the painting. You just gave him a picture. What's your question?
My question is, are you familiar with this painting? Have you ever seen it in person?
I've never seen it in person.
In past public statements, as in 2017 speeches and interviews, you described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory, alleging you and others ran a child...
Right when the truth starts surfacing, social media feeds are overflowing with speculation, screenshots, and resurfaced clips. Emails connected to Jeffrey Epstein have been circulating for years, but every time a new batch of documents leaks or another testimony surfaces, the same pattern repeats. Old connections get re-examined. Old friendships start looking suspicious. And now, somehow, Ellen DeGeneres, the once untouchable queen of daytime television, has found herself pulled straight into that storm of speculation. According to the chatter dominating online spaces, people are digging into Epstein's history of elite parties, secret guest lists, and powerful social circles. His emails referenced gatherings where billionaires, politicians, and celebrities crossed paths in ways that still haven't been fully explained. And now those whispers are looping back around to Ellen, with rumors claiming she may be trying to stay far away from the attention, while the Epstein investigations continue to expand. But here's where the story starts to feel strange. When Donald Trump returned to power and began pushing for the release of the long-hidden Epstein files, something happened that instantly raised eyebrows. Ellen DeGeneres quietly left the United States. No dramatic press conference, no explanation. She simply vanished from Hollywood's spotlight and reportedly spent more than a year living quietly in the English countryside with her wife, Portia de Rossi. Now, celebrities relocating overseas isn't unusual. Wealthy stars buy homes around the world all the time. But timing is everything. And the timing of Ellen's move had people on the internet connecting dots faster than anyone could keep up with them. Why leave America right when some of the most explosive documents in modern political history were about to surface? Why disappear from the country when powerful figures were suddenly worried about what those files might reveal? That question alone lit a wildfire across social media. But then another detail added even more fuel to the speculation.
When would your party start, let's say?
Like 9:30.
Really? That early?
Yeah.
I could make that.
Yeah.
But I could think of you of starting a party at like midnight. Like what time will it go till?
That's a different type of party.
No,
it'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel.
Mm-hmm. And then it will carry on there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then the after party.
Mm-hmm. No, I know about them.
England. Of all the places Ellen could relocate, she moved to a country that had its own long-running Epstein scandal, because the Epstein saga had already rocked the British royal family when Prince Andrew's ties to Epstein were exposed years earlier. That scandal dragged the monarchy through one of the most humiliating public crises in modern royal history. So when internet investigators noticed Ellen suddenly living in the UK, a place already entangled in Epstein controversies, the whispers became louder, much louder. And then another piece of old footage resurfaced, clips of Justin Bieber. Back when Bieber was just a teenage pop phenomenon, he appeared on countless talk shows while promoting his early music. Among the biggest platforms he visited again and again was Ellen's show. At the time, those interviews looked like normal celebrity television, light jokes, awkward humor, playful teasing. But watching them back today, some viewers say the tone feels completely different. In one resurfaced moment, a very young Justin Bieber seemed visibly uncomfortable during certain conversations about his personal life. At the time, audiences laughed it off. The entertainment industry often treats awkward moments with teenage celebrities as harmless jokes. But years later, as the public started re-examining how young stars were treated behind the scenes, those clips began looking less like comedy and more like warning signs that people ignored. Bieber himself later opened up about how confusing and overwhelming fame was when he first entered the industry as a teenager. He described a world where adults constantly surrounded him, where everyone claimed to care about him, yet trust felt impossible. And suddenly, those old talk show appearances became part of a much bigger conversation. Because Ellen wasn't just another interviewer. She was one of the most powerful figures in daytime television, someone who helped introduce Bieber to mainstream audiences and boost his career during his earliest rise to fame. But critics now claim some of those interviews pushed the line of what was appropriate for a teenage guest, and the situation becomes even more uncomfortable when another name enters the picture: Sean "Diddy" Combs. For years, rumors have circulated online accusing Diddy of questionable behavior around young artists in the music industry. Many of those accusations remain allegations, but the stories have spread widely across social media, and investigators online noticed that Ellen and Diddy had crossed paths repeatedly in Hollywood's elite social circles. That alone proves nothing. Hollywood is a small world where powerful figures constantly overlap at parties, charity events, and private gatherings. But Epstein's entire operation was built on exactly that type of overlap. Powerful individuals moving through the same social networks, attending the same events, sharing access to the same exclusive spaces. And that's where another detail adds even more intrigue. Ellen lived in Montecito, California, one of the wealthiest communities in the United States, a place where some of the most powerful and famous people in the world live quietly behind private gates. Oprah Winfrey, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, billionaires, celebrities, political figures. Montecito is practically a hidden city of elite influence. On its own, that means absolutely nothing. Wealthy people tend to live near other wealthy people. But when Epstein's scandal exposed how influence and access operated behind closed doors, people began asking a new kind of question. How many powerful networks overlap in places like Hollywood, London, and elite neighborhoods like Montecito? To be absolutely clear, Ellen DeGeneres has never been charged with any crime related to Jeffrey Epstein. There is no court ruling tying her directly to his criminal network. The rumors circulating online remain speculation, not legal conclusions. But that hasn't stopped the internet from digging deeper into every moment of her past, every interview, every friendship, every public appearance. And as people scroll through old headlines, they're starting to notice something else about Ellen's history, something that shocked fans long before the Epstein rumors exploded, a moment that made the internet erupt back in 2019. Because on a sunny afternoon at a Dallas Cowboys football game, cameras captured an image nobody expected to see. Ellen DeGeneres laughing and chatting comfortably beside former U.S. President George W. Bush. For many viewers, that single image felt like a collision of two completely different worlds. The backlash was immediate. Ellen had spent years building an image as a progressive voice in Hollywood, an advocate for LGBTQ rights, someone celebrated by liberal audiences. Meanwhile, George W. Bush's presidency included policies that many activists strongly opposed, particularly regarding same-sex marriage and military service rules affecting LGBTQ individuals. So when fans saw them smiling together at a football game, confusion exploded across social media. Some people defended Ellen's message that friendship can exist across political differences. Others felt deeply disappointed, questioning whether her public persona matched her private alliances. But in hindsight, that moment started looking like something else entirely. Another example of Ellen comfortably moving inside extremely powerful circles that crossed politics, entertainment, and wealth. And that pattern is exactly what people are re-examining now as the Epstein story continues unfolding. Because the deeper investigators dig into Epstein's world, the clearer one theme becomes. The same powerful names keep appearing in the same rooms, and the story is only getting bigger. Then just when people thought the story had reached its peak, it suddenly grew bigger, much bigger. Because while Ellen DeGeneres' name was being dragged through social media speculation, another shockwave hit Washington. And this time, the headlines were impossible to ignore. The newest batch of Epstein-related files didn't just mention minor figures or distant acquaintances. They included images and testimony connected to one of the most powerful political names in modern American history, Bill Clinton. And the moment those images surfaced online, the internet exploded again. Photos began circulating showing Clinton sitting inside a hot tub and swimming pool with unidentified women whose faces had been blacked out in the documents. Within minutes, the clips were everywhere. People zoomed into every frame, slowed down every second, and started dissecting the background like digital detectives. Some insisted the images proved nothing. Others argued they raised serious questions that demanded answers. But regardless of interpretation, one thing became clear immediately. The Epstein investigation was pulling powerful figures from every corner of society into the spotlight. Clinton eventually appeared before a congressional oversight panel to address the situation. He stated clearly that he had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities. He insisted the trips he took on Epstein's private plane in the early 2000s were connected to humanitarian work for the Clinton Foundation's AIDS initiatives. According to his testimony, the hot tub photo itself was taken during a trip to Brunei, where he had been invited by the Sultan while traveling through Asia. Yet even as those explanations circulated, critics weren't satisfied. Because for years, Epstein had surrounded himself with exactly this kind of elite company: politicians, billionaires, celebrities, royal figures, all moving through the same social environments while his crimes remained hidden in plain sight. And that pattern is exactly what people are re-examining now. Not just Clinton, not just Ellen, but the entire ecosystem of influence that allowed Epstein to operate for decades. Inside the testimony, investigators pressed Clinton with uncomfortable questions. Did he remember who else was in the pool area? Did he recognize the woman sitting near him in the photo? Did he recall whether any individuals present were underage? Clinton repeatedly stated that he didn't remember those details and maintained that everyone present was part of his traveling party during the humanitarian trip. Still, the exchange left viewers uneasy, especially when he admitted that Epstein himself had been present during portions of those travels. And just as that controversy was heating up, another dramatic moment unfolded involving Hillary Clinton. During a deposition connected to the investigation, photos of her testifying began appearing online while the questioning was still underway. The moment she realized images from inside the room were circulating publicly, she reacted instantly. She refused to continue answering questions and demanded the session pause. The frustration was obvious. She reportedly told investigators she would rather face contempt charges than continue if the rules of the hearing were being violated. To some viewers, the reaction looked like anger over a procedural issue. To others, it felt like something much deeper, another sign that tensions inside the investigation were reaching a boiling point. Because the Epstein files don't just contain isolated incidents. They contain millions of documents, emails, flight records, and witness statements that are still being processed. And according to lawmakers pushing for transparency, a massive portion of those records may still be missing. One member of Congress claimed that nearly half of the documents investigators expected to receive had never been turned over by the Justice Department. That revelation ignited an entirely new controversy. Accusations that evidence might be hidden, redacted, or withheld to protect powerful individuals whose names appear inside the files. Some critics even suggested the situation looked like a cover-up designed to shield elite figures from public scrutiny. Meanwhile, another billionaire name unexpectedly appeared in the expanding web of Epstein-related connections: Elon Musk. Newly revealed documents showed email exchanges between Musk and Epstein discussing the possibility of visiting Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. One message reportedly included Musk asking which night would be the wildest party on the island. Instantly, social media erupted again. But Musk responded quickly and directly. He publicly stated that he had minimal correspondence with Epstein and declined multiple invitations to visit the island or travel on Epstein's private jet. He also emphasized that he had been one of the loudest voices demanding the full release of the Epstein files. According to Musk, he wasn't worried about the emails being misinterpreted because his interactions with Epstein were limited and never involved participating in any events connected to criminal activity. Still, the revelations reinforced the same uncomfortable truth. Epstein's network stretched across politics, finance, entertainment, and technology. His contacts included some of the most most influential people on the planet, and every new document seems to confirm just how deeply those worlds overlapped. But beyond the famous names and political testimony lies the most disturbing part of the entire story: the voices of the victims. Survivors have continued coming forward to describe how Epstein's operation worked. One woman explained how she was recruited while still a young university student and aspiring model. She described being flown to New York and then suddenly finding herself on a private jet headed toward Epstein's island in the Caribbean. As the plane lifted into the air, she said Epstein began touching her without consent. She remembered feeling terrified, realizing she was thousands of miles from home with powerful strangers who controlled every aspect of the situation. The other women on board, she said, simply laughed while the abuse unfolded. That moment changed her life forever. She believed she might never see her family again. Stories like hers reveal the horrifying reality behind the headlines. While powerful figures argue over emails, photographs, and political testimony, survivors describe a completely different world, one built on manipulation, fear, and exploitation. And that's why the public reaction today is so intense. Because the deeper investigators dig into Epstein's network, the clearer the pattern becomes. Powerful people demand transparency until their own names appear in the documents. Then suddenly the conversation shifts. It becomes about context, about interpretation, about timing, missing files, redacted names, disappearing records. Meanwhile, the public watches the story unfold like a puzzle missing half its pieces. Some believe the full truth will eventually come out as more documents are released. Others fear the most damaging evidence may never see daylight. And in the middle of that storm sits a long list of famous names: politicians, billionaires, royalty, and celebrities whose connections to Epstein remain the subject of endless debate. Ellen DeGeneres is just one of them. She has not been charged with any crimes connected to Epstein. But her sudden move overseas, her powerful social network, and the resurfacing of old interviews have placed her back under a microscope she once escaped. Because once the internet starts connecting dots, it rarely stops. The Epstein investigation is still unfolding. New documents continue to surface. Testimony continues behind closed doors. And every new revelation sends another ripple through the same elite circles that once seemed untouchable. Now the biggest question hanging over all of it is simple, but incredibly powerful. When the final pieces of the Epstein puzzle are revealed, how many of those powerful names will still be standing?